Hey Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and welcome to a sort of post-mortem of the Divide the Spoils live stream that I participated in with Paradox for playing Imperator. This was a sort of promotional thing. I got the game for free. I got access to playing the game for free. I got the access to play it before you can normally play it, and it was a promotional thing that Paradox did with a whole bunch of other streamers who I will forget some of them. 99% of them, or rather, every single one of them was a super awesome person 99% of the time, except for when they were my enemies and they were absolute bastards. So this was a really cool event. I had a lot of fun participating in it. I had a lot of fun playing the game, sort of blindly, kind of stumbling about in the dark, trying to figure out things. I'll kind of talk about the gameplay in the background here in a moment, but the basic gist of the idea was you get 16 YouTubers and content creators and personalities, and you stuff them all into a game with multiple different teams all working together. I think there was 4 teams of 4 players, and yeah, we were all just like duking it out and having a good time and betraying each other. There was backstabs. Episode 1, basically from minute 1, erupted into what amounted to essentially be a global all-consuming war that basically never ended. Pretty much from day 1, every other player in the game, except for me, Marbazir, Cringer, and Prussian Prince, who were up in Germany playing as the migratory tribes, sort of sending out our little tendrils into the plains. You can kind of see in the background there, I'm playing as Bastarnia, which is a nation in Germany, sort of Eastern Germany, Poland area. And I'm expanding quite rapidly, and, you know, I ran into a couple of issues as I was playing. The big one is that my leader on day 1 essentially rolled a 0 on his oratory and religious power. And the entire strategy that I had practiced, like going into the sort of battle of the YouTubers, relied on me rolling like something other than a 0 on either of those things. And then my backup was civic power, right? It's like, okay, well, at least I can have some civic power, and then I can still kind of make my strategy work. But he also rolled a 2 on civic power. So it was kind of like the perfect storm of rolling like a 0-0-0 ruler in EU4 at the start of the game. And then you're kind of just shit out of luck, right? There's nothing you can do. So that kind of sucked. For the first little bit, I was kind of stuck with that leader. I probably could have gotten around it if I had understood the game's mechanics a little bit better. I still had a really good time in the first episode, but you can actually really tell, and you'll probably be, as you're watching sort of in the background there, you'll notice like I'm expanding really slowly, and the numbers up on the top of my screen are increasing really slowly, and then probably about maybe like a third to a halfway through this video, my leader is going to die, and then my nation is essentially going to explode across the plains because I actually have monarch points to use. So I want to talk about some of the other players. I believe Feedback Gaming was playing as Rome, and he was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun scheming with him. The end of the game, we kind of got together to take out the Hugbox, Thrace, Egypt, and Macedonian alliance, who had been, you know, basically holding each other's nuts the entire game and not fighting each other. And we were kind of like, well, you know, we had some technical issues and we didn't have a whole lot of time left, so let's go and try and take out those guys and try to make Rome stand until the end of the game. And we had a lot of fun pulling that off. Plus, our original plan was to try to get to Rome, but there were a few technical issues that the game is running into. Obviously, it's a launch day game, a Paradox game. It's going to have a few bugs, especially when it comes to multiplayer, right? There's going to be crashes, there's going to be bugs, and there's going to be some performance issues, which is perfectly normal and acceptable for a launch title, because it's going to get patched, it's going to get addressed. Paradox don't have these massive, gigantic QA teams, right? They need to get the game into the hands of the players, and the players kind of like bounce the systems around, find all the things that are broken, ship it off to Paradox, and then Paradox fixes it a couple months later, right? And that's sort of just how it works, because they don't really... I kind of like that way, because, I don't know, for me, I feel like there's a little bit of fun in finding things that are broken and you know, a little bit of struggles. So Feedback Gaming was on Rome, as I was talking about. He did a great job holding off. He had a friend indeed in the form of Enigmatic Rose... I can't remember what the number is at the end of her name. It's either 4 or a 6. Enigmatic Rose, the really cool person. She was a lot of fun to talk to. We we got together and we schemed for the demise of Thrace. Unfortunately, in the end, we didn't really get enough time to take them out. You can see the background here. I'm actually helping Prussian Prince unite his country. I spawned in a position where I didn't really need to conquer anyone to expand, so I was like, why don't I just expand into the wild? Why don't I just expand out into the empty plains? Like, there's no reason not to. And so that's what I did. And then I just said, well, look, guys, I have like all this empty land I can expand into. I'm just going to help you guys. So I think I want to say nearly 20 years into the game at this point, and I have significantly increased the power level of my nation. Considering my starting conditions, I'm still pretty weak, all things considered. This war we were in was actually really, really rough, and we had a really hard time winning this war. Because just there was a fort in between, sort of separating us from meeting up. So the AI was always able to like fight us one by one and kind of knock us out that way. But eventually we do win this war, but it took us way longer than it should have. But yeah, there was also there was another person playing Carthage. I don't really show the other players here much because I'm kind of focused on my own country. If you do want to see the VOD of the game, go check out Paradox Interactive's Twitch channel. They have the full VOD of the event. And I think it'll also be on their YouTube channel, cut down into little chunks for you, sort of bite-sized chunks for you guys to consume. The other player was Carthage. Heir of Carthage was on Carthage, and he did a really good job of basically trying to ruin Enigmatic Rose's and Feedback Gaming's day. However, and this is something quite funny, is he was actually rather new to Paradox games, and he had a really hard time against Enigmatic Rose, who used a lot of clever diplomacy with the AI and smaller nations around her to sort of hold them off. And then there was another person playing as Egypt, whose name I forget. Damn. Why can't I remember that person's name? Damn it. I was like, all right. I looked at the list of all the players before I started recording this, and I was like, I'm not going to forget any of their names. And I totally forgot one of their names. Macedon was played by Prince of Macedon, I believe his name was. He did really well actually in the early stages of the game, and then there was like a slight bug that caused the AI to take over our countries, which totally screwed me, by the way. And then his country essentially exploded from what the AI did in those like 5 days that it had control of his country, and he was pretty sad about that. Then Thrace was played by Aldrahill, I think it was. Epirus was played by Pravis, who basically immediately exploded at the start of the game because he was like, oh, I'm going to declare this war. This guy has no allies. And then like there was something where the AI had already sent out alliance requests, but they hadn't been accepted. So he like hits the declare war button. The AI has no allies. And then like a few days later, like 6 people get called to war with him. And he's like, oh God, I am dead. Like immediately. That was pretty funny. He got reassigned to a new country, Getia, and I was kind of like, you know, let's make our way over there. So yeah, like the initial guys, I think there was in Phrygia, the spiffing Brit was playing. He basically got dogpiled and murdered by Egypt, Thrace, and whoever was playing the Seleucids. It wasn't the Solar Gamer. The Solar Gamer was playing Maria, or the Egyptians. Shenrir was playing Armenia, who basically got murdered immediately and then collapsed into civil war twice, first as Armenia and then as Pontus. It was pretty funny, actually. He came into our channel at one point and was like, okay guys, I've noticed you guys haven't had civil wars. What can you tell me about this game? But yeah, he was a lot of fun to play with. A lot of, like pretty much everyone I ran into there was an amazing amount of fun to be around and play with. And I'm trying to think, is there anyone I missed? I got Pravis. Let me go through the teams. There was Enigmatic Rose, Feedback Gaming, Spiffing Brit, Benjamin Magnus. Benjamin Magnus was on Athens, and he eventually got killed and got moved to a new country. Sorry, not Athens. He was Sparta. He was playing as Sparta, and he actually held out a really long against incredibly superior opponents. So there's like a point at the game where Egypt was like throwing hundreds of thousands of mercenaries at us. in the very late game, and we were still holding them off, which was incredible, by the way, that Rome was able to hold them off. I think he was landing like every year or so, he was landing like 100 to 200,000 mercenary troops on Rome, and Rome was holding it off, partially because I was feeding Rome gold. But yeah, you'll see in the video, you know, things are progressing. I'm still getting very few monarch points per turn, but this is where things start picking up. I'm gonna start focusing on the game because I kind of went through what is happening. So at this point in the game, I've been expanding. I've been helping. I've helped Prussian Prince reach a specific size, and then I was like, hey, right, it's time for me to conquer some land. And then we kind of got bogged down in this horrific, like extremely long war with the AI that took far longer than it should have, because the tribal mechanics, how it works is they have these retinue troops that are basically raised by the generals. You don't pay manpower, you don't pay money for them. However, it means the generals sort of have a really high power level in your country, so they can kind of demand stuff from you. And yeah, it was it was rough to try to win this war because the troops don't use manpower or money. It's just like every war with another tribe just ends up being this like grind of who can like wear the other person down to the nub faster. And we did have superior forces, but it just took a while to get them all into the right positions and stuff like that. So we do eventually win this war and get most of the territory that I wanted. But after this war, I was basically like, dude, screw fighting German tribes, okay? I'm gonna just completely focus on expanding out into the wilderness. And I think it's actually during this war or sometime afterwards that my leader dies. And this is where you're going to see my nation like essentially explode across the plains. It can be kind of hard to see what I'm doing, but I'm essentially just doing a lot of management, right? I'm importing goods. I'm moving population around to colonize the tiles. You kind of have to have 10 population in a province in order to colonize an adjacent province. So you can kind of see I'm doing a lot of province interactions in between, waiting for my armies to recover and then moving back into fight, right? So I'm trying to juggle a lot of things that are happening right now. If I was in a single player game, I could pause the game, which would be really awesome, but kind of like this multiplayer format meant I couldn't pause the game, which was really tough to manage, and it was a really new experience for me because I'm so used to being able to pause and just do what I need to do when I need to do it. And so in a multiplayer game, you have to just make your decisions like on the fly, and you just have to know what you're doing. And I'm not very good at making my decisions on the fly when I don't know what I'm doing. So I was just making decisions, and I don't know if they were good ones, but they kind of got me through. Is this where my leader died? Let me see here. No, I'm still stuck with the crappy leader here. But you can see this war has gone on for like forever, and it's just this huge grinding pointless war that should have been over by now. But right now I'm trying to get a peace deal. I'm trying to figure out how do I get a peace. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to flip this fort up in Rugia or whatever it's called to try and get them to peace me out. I don't think it quite works. We have to do like a little bit of fighting and capturing a few more provinces. But once we have those, I'm able to sort of unite my country. And then it all kind of works out from there. There you go. There's the peace deal. We're looking much better now. We have a lot more pops. And these pops will help me fuel my economy. So at this point in the game, we're probably about halfway through the gameplay, and me and the other Germans are kind of like, right, we have basically done nothing but like expand into empty territory. What the hell are we going to do to, you know, have a big impact on the game and really try to entertain people? Because that's something we were really thinking about this whole time, is like, is what we're doing up here entertaining for the people watching the sort of mainstream? And I don't think it really was. So we were constantly like, well, how do we make things interesting? What can we do? And we were kind of going back and forth about whether we wanted to invade Rome or whether we wanted to do something else. And for me, for basically the start of the game, I had wanted to go take out Byzantium. I'd want to go take out Thrace. Thrace was my sort of public enemy number one, just because I felt like I could expand across the plains. Oh yeah, by the way, this is where the leader died. Just watch how fast my country grows now that my leader died, and I actually have monarch points to spare. I used to be getting 4 per month, and now I'm getting 6? I can't remember the exact number, but it might not seem like a big difference, but it makes such a difference. I'm able to expand so rapidly with just those 2 extra points a month, because it means I'm able to pull off my migrations and stuff like that much faster. So yeah, The current progress is, again, see, I'm just expanding. I'm now, like, look how quickly I'm taking territory now that I actually have, like, monarch points floating in the tank rather than constantly being out and constantly having to spend them. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm trying to rearrange my population. I'm trying to make decisions about where I want to settle, where I want to spread. And it was around here that I made the decision to go for Rome, I think. And I think I start spreading in that direction in the not too distant future. But yeah, the whole event was like super fun and really engaging. I'm definitely going to look to do more of these kind of things where I look for other people to play. Maybe even multiplayer with my community. Multiplayer with other YouTubers would be a lot of fun too. And I'm going to be actively seeking out and looking for these things to do them. In order to bring you guys some like interesting content, right? I think, you know, kind of Let's Playing on your own is a lot of fun for the viewer, but I think I had a lot more fun playing this multiplayer game than I did just kind of doing Let's Plays, and I think that's really important for the sort of longevity of my ability to continue doing this kind of content, is that I'm able to, you know, really get into and enjoy the content that I'm making. And this was a lot more fun than a single player game, I gotta say. I've been kind of drawn into the multiplayer thing, and I will be, you know, hopefully finding more avenues to bring you more of that kind of content. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. So yeah, right now I'm continuing to expand, and I think it's about here. It's around about here where I'm like, wait a minute, aren't there step horses like over there in that terrain where I can go get them? And sort of build up this army, and that's kind of what I want to do. You can see there was a little bit of confusion actually between Marbazir and Prussian Prince. Prussian Prince was trying to form the country of Swabia, but unfortunately Marbazir was the same culture as him, and so he ended up not being able to do that because there was just like a little bit of miscoordination between the players, so that kind of sucked. But yeah, that was that. Not much we can really do about, not really we could do much about it. We just kind of accepted that, look, right, we can't really make it happen, so we're just going to focus on our other objectives. So I was around this stage of the game too that I started talking to some of the other players in the game, and I was like, okay, what's happening? I made my goals known publicly, right? That I wanted to burn and salt Rome, I wanted to invade Rome and drop a tribe on it, and I wanted to turn it into a barbarian city. But then, you know, because I had been playing sort of isolated up here in the tribal area all on my own, I wasn't really aware of like what the political situation down on the rest of the map was. So then I went and talked to, look how big my country is, by the way, how quickly it grew just from having a few extra monarch points. Like, it's genuinely insane. So then I went and I talked to some of the other players, and I figured out the political situation a little bit, and I started like building a coalition of the chillin' to make the game interesting for the viewers, right? Because I basically, how I felt like when I was playing this was I was basically trying to build up to the final episode. Like, I wanted episode 3. There was 3 live streams, right? There was 3 3-hour live streams where I knew, because of the nation that we had been assigned, I wouldn't really be able to do much in episode 1 and 2. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend all of my effort and energy in episode 1 and 2, sort of building up to make a grand finale in episode 3 and push as hard and fast as I can with every possible avenue and troop that I could. And that is what we achieved. I feel like I can be proud of myself for how I conducted myself here. Considering this is the very first time I've done any sort of event like this, and it was a very high pressure environment. I know that sounds crazy because I'm just playing a game, but there's a lot going on because I'm playing a game I've never played before. I'm producing a type of content I've never produced before. I'm interacting with people I've never interacted with before. And in fact, some of the people that I was interacting with are like people I'm fans of, and I watch their content. So it was kind of like, you know, it was an interesting experience trying to juggle all of this sort of new information and new experience all at once, and trying to look competent and look like I knew what I was doing. And I was also at the same time just trying to have a good time, right? Because there was this, I felt this tremendous pressure to try and bring interesting content to, you know, the viewers of the Paradox stream, because I felt like, you know, it felt like a sort of sense of obligation that I needed to do that, right? It's kind of like my job as as a quote unquote entertainer. My job is to be entertaining. I was trying to think, well, what the hell can I do to make the game interesting? And this is actually where I realized that there was the Step Horse strategic resource over there in Scythia, I think it is. And I'm like, well, let's go settle that. So I sent my I sent my settlers over there, and I basically settle that and that's where I'm sending them right there. And I settle the Step Horses so that I can produce horse archers, because I knew that my enemies down in Thrace and, well, also Rome, who I'd been planning to attack, would be using heavy infantry, and horse archers are very, very strong against heavy infantry. Marbrazier got into a war here that kind of went a little bit weirdly for him, but I basically said to him, here, look, just call me in and I will throw like all of my troops at this war and see what I can do for you, and hopefully win you a little bit of territory. And he was like, yep, that's awesome. I would really appreciate that. And so that's what I did. I basically just threw all of the troops that I had at that war and got him a bit of an expansion, which he was pretty happy with. I was super glad that I could help Marbrazier out, because he got into a really, really rough spot early with a civil war. And this is right about where I became a major power. So I'm no longer like a regional power or a local power or a city-state. I now have 100 cities, so I'm like one of the big boys. I'm now like a global power, essentially. Even though I have a relatively small population and a relatively weak technology, I do have a lot of soldiers relative to the sort of what a civilized nation of my size and population would look like. I am a lot stronger because I'm a tribe. In particular because I'm a migratory tribe and I can move my population around. So yeah, this is where I was trying to get to Rome, right? And I declared this war, and things went really, really wrong with this war. Like, everything went weird. I occupied territory. There was ghost stacks of units. This is where I ran into a few bugs. And then after I ran into all those bugs, I was like, okay, there's not a whole lot of time left. Let's go to war with Thrace. And so I brokered a deal with Getia, whose territory I'm using military access to walk through right now to get to Thrace. And then I also brokered a deal with Rome and Sicily, played by Feedback Gaming and Enigmatic Rose, and also Benjamin Magnus, who was playing Armistia, just to the west of where we are right now. So here I am, I'm pushing down into Thrace, and what I'm doing right now is I'm using my Horde migratory mechanics to set up a base of operations. And unfortunately here, a little bit of missed micro here, I lost a couple of battles, but thankfully they didn't push. If they had pushed right now, I would have been in really bad shape. Now they would have also been cut off by the reinforcements of Getia. So essentially what we did is, this is a really interesting mechanic right here, is that the hordes, if you raise population as soldiers, you can actually take land without piecing out somebody, which is a big pain in the ass for the person you do that to, because you hurt their economy really in a really big way, and I was helping my own economy. Unfortunately, this tiny little city-state declared war on me. I don't understand why, but it meant that it really slowed down my war effort, because I think it took me like 3 years to siege down their city. Which really limited the amount of help I was able to provide to my allies, considering I was supposed to be the guy who threw everything I have at Thrace, then started to recover, and then the other guys hit them immediately afterwards. I wasn't ever really able to pull that off. I kind of had to fall back and deal with this like tiny little nation that was throwing soldiers at me and being annoying, or else it would totally screw up my war plans. But I mean, like, we had a really hard time breaking through because of that. Like, there was a bit of discoordination and we had a trouble like making our way through. But then I discovered that there was a little nation of Audricia and that they would give me military access. So I was like, okay, while you guys are like grinding through a war, I'm going to go down here and cause him some problems, going to occupy some land, pillage his territory, do all that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, where's his armies? And then his armies came in, and because I'm using horse archers to do this, I was able to run away before he could catch me. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to go over to this other area where you're not prepared for me to do this too. And I saw that he was building 2 forts, and I managed to use my horse archers to cancel the forts and essentially waste 200 gold on him, which felt really good to manage to sneak in there and do that to him. I think he was pretty upset about that. So right now this dude has like 200,000 troops like barreling down Thrace, but he did have a very narrow choke point that we had a very difficult time getting through. And he had extremely high quality troops compared to us. So he starts pushing back, and we're sort of counter pushing. I also had a slave revolt in my capital, which was really, really annoying. It essentially depopulated my capital. And the other really annoying thing is they basically killed my capital fort like instantly, which was insane. I don't know what was going on there. There was a couple of weirdnesses, right? I mean, it's a pre-release game, right? It's not finished. It's going to have issues. It's going to have bugs, right? That's all understandable and reasonable. So yeah, we started some really huge battles here. Basically, my goal was to try to get I just wanted to get Byzantium siege down, right? I did start off with these like really, really grand plans. I did start off with these like really, really grand plans of like, let's conquer Rome and take the Roman cities and conquer Byzantium. And then like, as we were running into technical issues and having to restart the game and all that sort of stuff, I had to start kind of scaling back my plans while still trying to make the most entertaining thing I could for the stream. I think we did manage to do that because our work over here in Thrace pretty much opened up the Romans to be able to defend Rome. Because while this is happening, Egypt is like this massive global superpower that is essentially throwing money at the people that we're fighting, while also basically just recruiting every mercenary he can find on the map and throwing it at Rome across the oceans, which was pretty crazy. Also, in the middle of this war, those little tiny nations that I never killed to the north of me, they all started declaring war on me and Prussian Prince, which was a huge pain in the ass, I will say. A huge pain in the ass, because that's why every now and again I start looking up there. I wanted to put my full attention on this little war down here, and I feel like I did an okay job of being very annoying by like sneaking past, using military access and getting in there. And this is where I start like trying to siege down this area and make them try to split up their forces while also simultaneously fighting to the north and south. And this is where we managed, by breaking their armies up, this is where we kind of broke them. And this is when he started essentially screaming. He's like, Egypt, send help! Help, Egypt! But Egypt was, I think, a relatively new-ish player to the game. So, to Paradox kind of game. So he was maybe making some tactical errors. He kind of had that bit of like superpower arrogance where he was like this incredibly powerful country. So he didn't really have to think about his decisions too much. And I think that bit him in the ass a little bit, because he was technically right that he didn't really have to think about his decisions, but it ended up hurting him a lot more than it would help him. So this is us. We basically occupy the whole area over here. I was trying to get them to peace out. I was like, okay guys, look, we beat you, give us our holdings. We have won. But they refused any attempts at peace. So the here's where the Egyptians reinforcements arrive. Is it right here? It's around about here that the Egyptian reinforcements arrive and start kind of pushing us back. Also, there's like revolts and terrifying civil wars happening back in my homelands. But I'm like, at this point, my only objective is to do normal stuff. Sorry, not normal stuff. It is to... this is where I started trying to piece them out. I was like, all right, guys, I beat you. Give me some lad. But yeah. Yeah, see, this is where the Egyptian army arrives and starts pushing us back. And this is like right before the end. Definitely one of the most fun events I've ever seen and participated in. Considering I haven't really participated in any events except for like early access kind of stuff, where like I get access to the game and I play it on my own. I definitely think a multiplayer sort of thing was a lot of fun. And I actually didn't, I kind of had an aversion to playing Paradox games in multiplayer, but I can really see how fun they can be. And so this is where I started thinking, oh crap, how do I get my score up to look better at the end of the game? So I started like going through my country and like promoting every pop that I could to the highest level that I could. And that sort of made me look a little bit better. But yeah, unfortunately, the Egypt player basically had infinite money and infinite, just infinite everything. So no matter what we could do, we could never break them. Although right here, Rome, essentially, I think Rome took like a 30 stack against like a 70 stack and completely obliterated the 70 stack, killing like 50,000 troops in a single battle. Rome was super carrying the game. But we pushed hard to... we didn't have a whole lot of troop quality, but we did have the numbers. And so this is around about where I started converting my pops and I went to a higher level of nation. I think the game was basically ending here and I was like, all right, it's time to sort of see if I can get my score up. But yeah, that was it. It was Imperator. It was a very fun event. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And hopefully I will see you guys when the game comes out and we can watch some actual gameplay of it. Other than that, I want to say I love you all very much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.